everyone. Welcome to another awesome day of FileMaker training. I'm Richard Carlton, creator of FMtraining.tv, where every day is a great day to do FileMaker training, to bring this group together to help us make better FileMaker applications so we can have success within our business organizations, whatever those organizations are: education, higher ed, nonprofit, small business, large business, even Fortune 100 companies use FileMaker. They really do every day. About 1 million people log into FileMaker at any given time using it online. It's a pretty amazing statistic. And that does continue to grow. It's pretty exciting. So the broadcast schedule is pretty interesting. Today, we're going to be doing anchor-buoy for butterflies and bugs. So basically, one of you made a request to us, but it's a good question and people miss it sometimes, and we're going to keep this. So that is for today. So it's going to be a basic conversation, but it's basically like where we did like the mechanics of scripting. This is the mechanics of understanding the relationship graph. Same thing. If you understand the mechanics of scripting or the mechanical kind of rules that I had for scripting, like explain it to someone, if you can verbally articulate it and use those words, then write those down. I've got emails from a number of you, and some of you sent messages to me about you use this technique and you were able to successfully build out an application, which is really awesome. So it helped you get through some things because FileMaker is so creative. It's like, I'm going to paint this masterpiece on this canvas and here's my paints. And it's like that dude with the super curly hair and he does the painting and everyone's like, it's so amazing. You're such a beautiful person. And that's how FileMaker is. The problem is for a lot of us, we're not naturally super artisty. Like I'm creative, but I'm not that creative. And so I need a little bit of guidance on if I'm going to draw a picture of a bunny rabbit, little face, little ears, right? The whole thing, right? So a little bit of guidance on that, help us get us started. Once you have the basics and you've got the basic mechanical stuff, then you can expose your creativity to give it the flair that you want it to have. That's totally great. So I'm going to try to get you over the frustrating part at the beginning. That's what I'm here to do. With that in mind, as a reminder to support the channel, go to Patreon. Oh, don't go to Patreon. Go to fmtrain.tv. Press the button where it says bundles. Choose one of the bundles. We greatly appreciate it. So the conversation today is, so Butterflies and Bugs on YouTube commented that whenever I talked about anchor-buoy, I talked about it from the standpoint of FM starting point, which has got a lot of things in it. And I think as soon as you see all the little boxes everywhere, people's brains, they lose their minds. And I totally get that, right? I totally get that. It's one of those deals where you can, but if you understand the rules, like at the end of today, we will open starting point. I'll find a copy, open a copy starting point, and then apply the rule to that. But let's start it basically. So once again, remember that we were talking about the mechanics of scripting the other day. So the mechanics of scripting were you need to do, so you have a process in scripting or that you think should be a script, an automatic process, and you're trying to figure out how to write the code. I don't know how to write a code. I've never written code before in my life. And the idea was that if a coworker calls you on the phone, literally on the phone, only on a phone, and they're talking to you, hello, and they say, I don't know how to create this report and print it on a PDF and email it. If you can verbally, well, first, Fred, you're going to go to this layout. Yep. And you're going to do a find. Yep. You're going to do a sort. Yep. And then we're going to do a print job. And on the print job, we're going to say, only print this record. Got it. But at the bottom, we're going to do this other thing. And then we're going to attach it to email. If you can verbally articulate those steps, which almost every one of you can do, then you can write scripts in FileMaker. This, what we're doing is the same sort of concrete rules. These rules have never been formally fleshed out by Claris because Claris never wanted to tell people how to do things. And I'm not telling you how to do it. I'm just trying, like, this is like the basic. When you're totally lost, follow these rules. And as you become more and more and more advanced, that don't follow these rules because you'll understand enough that you don't have to follow them. But if you're totally lost, scripting or defining a relationship graph or defining tables, follow these rules. So I'm going to open up a copy of FileMaker. I'm going to create a blank file. I'm going to be calling it anchor-buoy AB for butterflies and bugs. Okay. Desktop, save desktop. It creates the default set of fields. I'm going to delete those. I'm going to delete. So we have a table. In fact, let me go to tables up here. I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about figuring out what the table should be. So you go to table, we're going to say, let's pretend that we work for the Nuclear Regulatory Commission, and this is going to be a facility, i.e. a nuclear reactor. I'm going to say, create that. I have this table over here that was created automatically. I'm going to call this a test. So what they do with this reactor these days is they use it to perform tests on medical devices, a lot of medical x-ray devices, a lot of radiation, stuff like that. They use this facility to perform a test. So I'm going to say, change that to a test. And then I'll say facility, okay? I'm going to change that. So we have facility, we have test, we have contacts of the people who will be performing the test. So this is very simple, okay? That's all I've done. I've created 3 tables. I'm going to go into each of these tables, and essentially I'm going to start off with no fields in the tables. And this gets us to the point where we can have this conversation with butterflies and bugs. I'm really hoping she's here, because then when she asks questions, we can answer the questions.
She is.
So she is here. I'm so happy I'm not talking to myself in the dark room. So this is the file right here. So this is a brand new blank file. It has 3 tables. It's designed to track the facility that we have, any kind of facility, but in this case, we're talking about a facility with a nuclear reactor, and it could be a small one. Nuclear reactor could be this big. If you can see my hands here, it could be this big, or it could be the size of a room if it's going to power a city or something, right? But little tiny ones could do little things. And so it's a facility. There are tests that we're going to perform. So they turn the reactor on, they spin it up, they run a test, and they shut it down. Generally, I think this is how this reactor works. And then there'll be people who will run the test. Okay. So let's talk about this. So if I go file, now if I go butterflies and bugs, if I go file manage database, you under Command Shift or Command Control D, I'm gonna use my left hand going forward. Here are the tables. I'm gonna say we have contacts over here. These are the tables. I'm gonna go to fields real quick. Let's just create the fields real quick. I'm gonna say ID contact, contact singular. It's gonna be a primary key. A lot of times I'll put an underscore and a P on there. The name doesn't matter as long as you, Butterfly Bugs, knows what this is. I hit create. I'm going to start it with a serial number. Why a serial number? Because we have brand new people and they should know. So what I'll just put C on the front, and that's like 3 zeros and or you could do it like that on there, put a dash in there. I don't want to overly complicate it. I'm going to say, okay. I'm going to say the name of test person or something, right? The name of contact name, right? Contact name, first and last. First, contact name, last. All right, so I'm going to hit create right there. I'm going to say, so I'm going to have that's the primary key for the facility. I'm going to say primary serial number. I'm going to say F for facility 0001. Okay. And, there's our thing there. Then I'm going to have facility name. Okay, I'm going to create that as a text field, and I'm going to say megawatts, because most reactors are rated in megawatts, like how many megawatts and that kind of thing. That could be a number, I guess. I could define it as a number. I'm going to do that real quick. Facility and the test. So this will be ID test primary key. Once again, I put a P on there just for clarity. Text create option right here. Serial number, auto enter on the serial number. So once again, as a reminder, auto enter values are great. We need those. Stay away from validation. The road to hell is if you use stuff in there, don't use stuff in there. If you're Japanese, use Japanese stuff over here. And storage is important, but we're not covering that today. I'm going to say it's a test. I might just put the word test and then 0001. And then the next record would be test 002, et cetera, right? Makes sense? Okay. I'm going to say date of test is going to be a date field. I'm going to hit that, create that real quick. And then I'm going to have test name. Okay. Test name, create. All right, great. Now, this is important. So I have a file. I created the tables. These are the best guess tables. I created a couple fields in each one. So birds and butterflies, here we go. There's the logic. I'm going to say, okay. So what happens is that FileMaker will create, and this is such an important thing. I got our little notes over here. So from the ground up, decide what you want to track. Take a best guess at tables. Step 2, define tables and some fields. Once again, best guess. Okay. I'm not going to put the step numbers in here. I'm just putting these notes in here. I'll clean this up later for everyone. Is when you define a table, right? You get one matching TO for each table, and you get one matching layout. Now, here's now Claris wants you to be successful with this, and I understand why they auto create these, but they auto created them for you, and they don't. And by them automatically creating them for you, it's not helping your education.
You don't realize the two are different.
Well, you don't understand the connection level. So I'm going to save this real quick. I'm going to move it out of the way. So here's the deal. At the core, and this is about context, at the core, the foundation of the earth, of your FileMaker solution, at the bottom, we're going to build the foundation up. At the bottom is the table. Attached to the table is the table occurrence. It's a box on the relationship graph. So bottom box is a table. So like a facility table, so with a nuclear reactor. Then it's a table occurrence, which is a reference to that table. It's an occurrence of that table on the graph. Occurrence meaning that there could be more than one. There could be one. There could be more than one. In our demo right now, there'll only be one. So the table, a table occurrence, the table occurrence is attached to the table beneath it. The layout above, the third level, top layout is attached to table occurrence. The table occurrence is attached to table. Those three things, absolutely, you must understand that right now. Fundamentally get it. So can a layout be attached to a script? No. Is a layout attached to a table in another file? No, I think it has to be attached to a table occurrence in the current file. So if I go back to sharing my screen real quick, I'm over here. And so I'm on this, I'm on facility. If I go to layout mode, okay, up here at the top, it'll tell you that this is mislabeled. I cannot do anything about this. This should say table occurrence, table occurrence. It's attached to the facility table occurrence. Well, it says facility, and that's the name. If I go file, manage, database, well, it says there's a table right there called facility. It must be attached to that. It's not, okay? So table, we build the table, forget the fields for the moment. Then we go to the relationship graph. We get 3 boxes. I'm going to tell you to put 3 boxes on the left like this. 1, 2, 3. It doesn't matter which one's in front of which. I'm going to come over here and I'm going to put a number. So that is the base table it's attached to. This is an arbitrary name, Blue Doggy 55. Okay? It doesn't matter. However, now we're on the layout, which was facility. And look, it says it's attached to the table Blue Doggy 55. That's not true. There's no table called Blue Doggy 55. It's a table occurrence. And so I go to the database. So I have tables. Notice the table is still called facility. Okay. If I go to relationships, I got one called Blue Doggy 55. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give this a better name. I'm going to call it table occurrence group. I could call it TOG if I want to call TOG 1. Now, for short, I just do one, T1, and then I say facility. Okay. Okay. So then I'm going to call this what? We're going to call this for numbering. Why are we numbering stuff? Because we can specifically identify why do you have a license plate on your car? If you drive a gray Camry from Toyota or a gray Subaru Outback or something, some of you drive those cars. Why is there a license plate on there? So they can tell who you are. When you go 110 miles an hour down the freeway and the cops are chasing you, they know who you are. If none of the cars had license plates. So FileMaker by itself creates these things without license plates on them. And we are all confused. Okay. So we have to put our own license plate on here. T02. T03. So step 1, identify tables. Step 2, understand that it auto-created the table occurrences here. And it auto-created the layouts. The layouts are attached. The layout for facilities attached to this. This is attached to the facility table, which is also listed under there. Super important. If you get that, you're halfway there. I say, okay. And now I made these changes on here. They're not really saved until I hit okay. So I hit okay over here. Every once in a while, either if I'm in layout mode, I'll go back to browse mode to force FileMaker to save it. If this file was important to me, I'd also then load it on a FileMaker server. So if FileMaker crashes, I don't damage it. Because if FileMaker Pro is running here and it's actually on like I take this file and put it on the FileMaker server. If my Pro crashes, the server just disconnects me and the file is protected. Super important concept. So I would ideally, if this was important, not run it locally. Unless you don't have a FileMaker server, then run it locally. But everything I do, I run on the server. Margaret, good question.
Butterflies and Bugs said the comment regarding the name of the table versus table occurrence is a big thumbs up. So
okay, that's a huge deal right there. So what am I looking at right now? I'm going to change this to something else. Oh, look at that. So the layout over here, these names change to match. They don't always do that, right? Because normally what I do is I go File, Manage, Layouts, and the layouts get numbered differently. But because if you see a T on something, that means it's a table occurrence, okay? And if I put an L, and I just start these with, I don't put any leading zeros. I put L1. Then actually probably what I would do is I put L100 on this. And the reason is that allows me to put some other facility related layouts in here. And then if I did this one right here, I would say this is L200, right? And so that leaves you space to insert facility related, like if you had this is a data entry screen. Then there's a list view of the facility. Then there's a report of a list view, a report of the facility. Then I have a label for the facility that I can print and stick on something or whatever, or FileMaker Go layout for my phone for the facility that's focused on the facility. Okay. Now, once again, it hasn't been saved. Oh, we're in managing layouts, so these are saved. If I close this, I come over here. Now we see them. Okay. Makes sense. Makes sense. Makes sense. Now, if I go File, Manage Data, for going forward in the keyboard shortcut from now on, there comes the shortcut 1, 2, 3, Command Control or Command Shift D. Here they are. Okay. So what I'm going to do.
A speedy request to change the T1 to T01 because Butterflies and Bugs is wondering if there's a reason why you didn't use the 0.
No, remember, this could be blue shoes 5. It doesn't matter. Okay. But for your sanity, I agree that we should probably be consistent. Understand that there's no reason this has to be named anything. I am doing it so it makes logical. Okay, so this is not choose, it's facility, right? Facility. Okay, there we go. Right. I'm like, what the hell are we talking about? Facility tests. Okay. And I hit okay. So it's saved. Now, that's step 1. So you understand that? So we got the tables. You probably don't have the fields anymore, but you took your best guess at the tables. Okay. Now, to help our brains out, I'm going to go back here real quick and I'm going to pop open a big Post-it note. Now, this is a Post-it note and it can say anything on the Post-it note we want. Okay. And and the way the Post-it notes work in here is that they always go to the background. So if I drag this over here, it always goes to the background. So if I put it over here, what I'm doing is I'm kind of setting up this idea for the anchor and then the buoys I need. And I would simply call this T01. And then what you do is you do facility or something like that. Well, why'd you do it that way? Well, it's redundant. It's redundant. Look at so small. You don't need it. It's redundant. Okay. However, you can come up here and say, I want it something like Jumbo Max. And then when you're looking at this thing in the graph and you're trying to find stuff, right? Then you can, instead of me reading a little text, you just look giant facility over here, right?
You don't have to sift very hard.
You don't have to sift very hard. So I'm going to click on that. I'm going to hit the duplicate button. If I click on it, down here at the bottom is the duplicate button. It makes a duplicate. I'm going to come down here. And then so I'm just going to name this TO2. And this is, I'm going to spell this out, reactor tests. We have a better idea what the tests are. The underscore doesn't have to be here. In fact, this spot, the underscore is absolutely not needed under any situation. But when you name stuff in FileMaker, if you're ever going to do any advanced like API stuff or PHP stuff or XML stuff or some weird JSON stuff, the spaces in the names of a field or name of a layout or name of a script could screw you. And you won't know that you've been screwed. By not using spaces in field names, layout names, script names, then you eliminate one possible problem in your future. And you may not see the problem for a year, or you may never see the problem, but it's out there kind of waiting. It's like if I'm in Ukraine and I lay one landmine, okay, is it going to screw the world up? No. And we probably will never step on the one landmine that's in a field in the middle of Ukraine, okay? But it's there. And if that's one space, but you do this 100 times, then you have 100 landmines, sooner or later, some 12-year-old is going to step on it. And what'll happen, it'll be you're going to be the 12-year-old who steps on it. So I'm just telling you, don't do that. This is the next moment of discovery. Ready? Butterflies and bugs, are you prepared for the next moment of discovery? Step one, tables, throw some fields on there. Understand that it's table occurrence layout. Now you're to the point where like, I've done the basics here. I want to build the layout. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into layout mode and I'm going to be on a reactor test. And so I want the data of the test right here. I'm going to put it up here like this. I'm going to put the data test over here. The name of the test is like this. I'm going to come over here. I'm going to put this like this. I'm going to get rid of the top header because if you're doing a top header is for a form view, you don't need it. This is a form view. Then up here, we're going to put a little graphic up here. It'd be like some little nuclear reactor symbol up there. That's the graphic of the company. You got this. You're like, whoa, I want another field on here. So you could come down here and fields and you can say add a field. You can do it in here, butterflies and bugs. You can say description of tests. Okay. Okay. So I'm going to make a description right here. Description of test. Maybe that's like this description of test. And then you have to decide, then we're going to put another box here and some lines here. And then we're going to have a picture of the test and we're going to have some other stuff over here. And you start building this layout, right? You're like, I'm going to build a layout, right? There's a box here with some stuff, maybe a container over here. So you're building this, okay? And then you're like, well, Richard, you haven't told me about anchor-buoy because I've done everything so far I need to do. This is the discovery moment. Well, how do you know what to connect a relationship graph? Up front, you don't know. Up front, you don't know. You don't build the relationship graph and then build the layout. Build the table. Build the table occurrence groups. Create the little, put them in a vertical on the left. Put a little yellow sticky note under there if you want. Then work on the layout. We're going to work on this layout right here. Yeah, but how do I know what to put? Everyone jumps to what the relationship graph looks like. We build the relationship graph based upon what we need on this specific layout. That's all we do. That's all we do. So you're like, well, the professor, Smirnoff from the University of California, Davis, where I went to school, is going to want to run a reactor test. Okay, so we know that the test, we go up here, I'm going to create a new record. Test here one, test name is test Tesla Model X. With gamma radiation and the sieverts or whatever they are, sieverts, it'll be 5,000 per minute or whatever they do. So that's a lot of radiation. We're going to put a Tesla Model X in there. We're going to radiate the shit out of it to see what happens. I'm not saying this is a valid test. Would be interesting. Probably nothing would happen except no one would want to drive that car afterwards because the car would have residual radiation in it. That might cut down on your life expectancy. So test the lithium power system to see if it can be driven in near Chernobyl. Chernobyl, however you spell Chernobyl, okay? Or will it just die on the road? Right? Because some electronics are very sensitive to high levels of ionizing radiation. Not good. So we're going to test the electrical system. You drive near Chernobyl, it shuts off. That's not good. So the professor is going to run the test. You're like, cool. And so how do we put the dude in here? Well, we know it's a person. We probably have a contact table, so we need to support that. And you're like, well, if I want to put the field, I'll go back to layout mode. I want to put the field on here. So I'm going to grab a field or drag it. I always option drag a field. If I hold the option key down or the alt key or whatever it is on Windows, it makes a copy of it. I said, but I need the table from contacts, but contacts isn't related. So there we go. So it informs us that somehow we need to connect contacts to the test. Okay. Does that make sense? So in this moment, I'm going to go File, Manage, Database. And contacts is down here. You could be like, oh, I'm going to connect this up here. Okay. That's the road to hell is cross-connecting all the table occurrences. Don't do that because that will lead to very confusing things and bad performance. All these correspond to layouts on the left. These are anchors. The supporting items that we're going to create over here are the things you need to deliver your layout to your user that you want. Well, I want to connect the contact to it, but maybe we don't, maybe the test is a generic test. We don't connect facility to it ever. Well, then you would never have facility connected over here. Does that make sense? We're on TO2. I'm going to create a new table occurrence. The table occurrences that come from contacts, okay? And I have ID contact over here. And so the question is, do you want to have the primary contact over here? Really, the primary is here, so we need a field over here. This gets into relationships, and you could even end up this being a many-to-many. I don't want people to get overly wound around the act. This is not that conversation. I'm going to go back to the test here. I'm going to go to tables. First, I'm going to say I'm going to call it a reactor test. Reactor test. I'm going to rename it. Okay. Then I'm going to go to fields, and I'm going to have the ID of the contact, and it's going to be the foreign key of the contact. Okay. So I put a little option F down there. It just helps me know it's a foreign key. If you don't know the difference between a primary key and a foreign key right now, just go with it. Right. I don't know. That's a bigger conversation than we want to probably jump into, unless someone has a specific question. Right.
I don't see one at the moment, so I think you're.
I need to create that. There we go. Create. So we create that. We go to relationships. So now we can connect the primary key. So this person will be attached to this person. So one contact could be working in charge of more than one reactor. So if I come over here to the zoom button, which is right here, this primary key is unique to this person. This is going to be Professor Smirnov. And this Professor Smirnov could be in here and do having more than one reactor test. Right? He's a PhD smart person. He has probably more than one test. Okay. We say, okay, we define this field over here, the ID contact foreign key. That's fine. The point is that if I now through a name, I can option drag this down. I can see the name of the person. So I'm in tests. I see it's related to contact. First name. I'm gonna move that out of the way. Because I got a lot of times what I'll do is I'll just do name like this. And then what I do is, so if people are like, well, you didn't really label it first name, right? Well, I don't know. If you listen to Apple design software, a lot of times they try not to even label the fields. But what I could do is as a placeholder text, I could have it under this layout, right inspector, right pane's a data pane, placeholder. If it's blank, it'll just say first. Okay. And then what I can do over here, I'm going to duplicate this. It's going to be attached to the last. And you're like, well, how? I mean, I guess you could know first and last. But if I come over here, I'll just call this one last, hit return, hit browse. So when I'm over here, if it's blank, it kind of gives you a hint what's in there, right? So ideally, I would pop a new window here, new window, and I go to the contacts, and there are no records in here, new record. So this is Richard Carlton, new record, butterflies. Last name in bugs. Here's your last name. New record. Peter. I don't even know how to spell Smirnoff. Smirnoff. Like adult beverage, something like that. Okay, there's Peter Smirnoff. So he is C0003. If I put relationally over here, just connect this. I put C003. It activates a relationship. His name should show up over here. 1, 2, 3. I'm going to click out. There he is. So the fundamental concept here, not so much about how to make this easier. We could do that in this conversation, but if I go File, Manage Database, now I've got this over here. And so I'm going to go ahead and zoom in on this one more time so we can see this. So we're working on the table occurrence group TO2. So someone says, hey, can you add something for me? You say, what table occurrence group? TO2. A table occurrence group is a bunch of relationships like this that are not cross-connected to another group. So I would come over here and you're like, whoa, it's got the name of contacts. That's fine. Double click. And I'm going to say it's going to be T. So I know it's attached to T02. I could do it like that. But that's a little confusing because now I have two T02s. So what we do is we start numbering them A. Then the next one down would be B. The next one down would be C or D or E or F. And so now you have the basis of what we're trying to do. And so we keep building these out. How do we know to put one on here? Because we need it to display something on the screen we decided. So what you want to put on the layout drives the things you connect to it. That simple. It's that simple. That is a huge discovery moment.
I'll ask a question that I think probably some people ask. Does the direction of it matter?
No, it's bidirectional. It doesn't matter at all. I read left to right. So important things, and when you outline or anything is on the left, and then supporting things to the right. If you're Japanese or whatever, it's top down or right to left or whatever it is.
It's like a noun and a bunch of verbs.
Yeah, there's a supporting items to it. I've done it before where I had the anchor in the middle and then I had things left and right of it. So here's a copy of starting point. And this birds and butterflies did not want to see this. I'm like, okay, but if I come over here to birds and butterflies and I come into here to starting point and I go file, manage, database, and you see this right here, can you tell me how and why things are on here? Notice that this group is connected in here. It's on top of the yellow. It's arbitrary. If you get out of hand, you start relabeling things, it'll slide off or it'll go off. That doesn't matter. This just kind of is a visual indicator to me that if I look at this, that these are the ones for that, these are the ones for that, these are what, this is the visual help for me to find out what I'm doing. So here's the test question for butterflies and bugs. Looking at this screen right here, if this is the anchor over here on the left, and this is attached, what should this be attached to on the left? By default, it's attached to what? What is it attached to? And if it's attached to something, how do I know what these are that should be over here? How do I know what to put over here? Those are the two questions. If you can answer that today, if any of you at home can answer that today, you're at office, you're at work, you're explaining this to your coworkers, you're teaching your coworker how to use FileMaker. Sometimes people at the very beginning, before they get creative and start doing all the creative stuff, need that basic rules of the road. Gas pedal, push it down, car goes faster, let off, push the brake, stops the car, slows the car down. Steering wheel, right, left. I've actually met people who are trying to learn how to be helicopter pilots who had never driven a car. So the idea of turn the wheel right to go right, turn the wheel left to go left was we had a really hard time with that. So this is that kind of conversation, basic conversation. Margaret, what do we got?
We'll see what butterflies and bugs says, but to your first question, the one, are they following? She said, yes, totally following. This is super, super helpful. Ricardo said this is a really clear explanation. Ricardo is another beginner that I recognize. Diamok asks, direction doesn't matter even for relookup, question mark.
No. I mean, it's a backup. So I can grab this and move it up here. Nothing's changed. Not a single thing has changed. Okay. I move it over here. Nothing's changed. Nothing has changed anywhere. I can move it down here. It's touching this yellow box over here. Has anything changed? Well, it looks like this, to be clear, but nothing has changed. And you'll be like, why did Richard put it down there? That's really confusing. Yeah, that's why I try to keep it in the little yellow box, right? So I'll grab it, move it back up here, over here. It doesn't matter, okay, at all. Because why? What a layout is attached to what? A layout is attached to what? Someone besides butterflies and bugs. TO.
The TO, yep.
A layout is attached to this. So all of these on the left here, these anchors on the left, they all should be attached to an important layout, probably the data entry layout and the major list view layout for accounts. So if I go to accounts data entry, it will be attached to that. If I go to, forget the calendar, it's a little weird, but you go to contacts. Now it's rolled down. Well, that's different. It's just rolled down. If I zoom in here real quick and I come over here and I select this tool right here, it's just rolled up so you can see it, but I could make it small. Remember, it has 3 settings. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Click, click, click. Click, 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 click. Okay. The contact, data entry, and main screens are attached to this. So what are these items that are here? What are
buoys attached to layouts?
That's the buoy part of the anchor buoy, right?
Yes. So.
But these are the pieces that we need to provide functionality we need on this layout. That's all they are. These are put here because this provides some data that we needed to see here. Well, how do I know what data needs to be seen there? You're thinking about this backwards. It's like you saying, how do I breathe on Saturn, different planet? Okay, first question is, why are you going to Saturn? What's your mission objective? How you're going to get there is secondary. Okay, first decide what the mission is. Well, the mission is to have a layout that tells me about a reactor test. What is the mission? The mission is a layout that the users will use that provides them useful functionality. It helps them with their job. If you can't explain that, then stop, because that's why you're using FileMaker, because you have to do something to help people. This is back to the basics. You build a layout because that's what people use. What does a layout need? It needs to have fields attached to it. And if it has related data, then you start connecting the buoys to it, the relationship. Well, what relationship should I use? That's a different conversation. We've had those conversations. We'd have more of those conversations. It's not a problem, but this is the fundamental, is that the relationship items I put on the right could be anywhere. The items that you attach are the things that have to provide data. Like, for example, I don't see the reactor over here anywhere on here. We have a test. Peter Smirnoff is running a test. We're going to radiate the out of a Tesla Model X. That's a lot of sieverts. I think that's a fatal dose right there. But look on here. We have, this is the data that's local in the table. This is contact data. Well, I want Peter Smirnoff's phone number. Well, it's a relational database. File, manage, database. We're going to go to tables. I want to add a phone number for the contact. Go over here, phone. Create the phone number. It's there. Okay. Which means if I go back over here real quick, I just drop the field into here where it should go next to the person, which means I can get it through the relationship, right? Oh. And then after this, we'll do the reactor. So then I say, I'll just grab a field from up here. Here's a field. I'm going to drag a field from up here. That's like the drag a blank field. It thinks we want to do this as the last one we played with. This is the base table, which is about the test. This is the one related table on contacts. What would you like? The phone number. Done. Now, it's like, hey, this is bullshit because we need to know what reactor this is.
We have another question from YouTube, from Brooks Presnell. What is your preferred/best practice to keep things clean on your relationship table? Do you create duplicate relationships just so they are on both sticky notes? I know it's not needed, but stuff gets hard to find. He's talking about if you collect accounts as a buoy to contacts, you don't technically need to connect contacts as a buoy to accounts, but do you do that anyway?
No. Right now, there are no... Okay, Brooks, you there? You're listening? And other people? You're like, well, how come I just didn't connect it from reactor down here? Here's the deal. If your solution has 5 or 6 or 10 relationships, the performance is fine. Most of us, we start getting success with FileMaker and people start adding things to it. It's like, hey, Brooks, can you add this other thing? Oh, Brooks, can you add this other thing? Oh, can you add this other thing? And suddenly you got 20 things you got to do. And suddenly your relationship graph, it's going to look like this. So why, if I'm accounts right here and I have contacts right here, why didn't I connect this one here, up here to contacts, ID contact? Why didn't I come down here and connect it to contacts down here? The answer is because two huge issues. One is performance, one's complexity. If I'm on accounts here in FileMaker and I've got A through A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, N, O, P, there's P, Q, and there's a Y and a Z down. There's like 20 here, okay? But if you look at this table occurrence graph, there are, if these are all, say that there's no performance problems and this is fast, and these are all connected together as one big table occurrence, okay? And I'm over here, and I go to accounts. I'm on this layout. I go to layout mode. I'm just going to delete some stuff, make some room, okay? So here we are with account. I want to, I'm going to option drag this over, and I'm going to pop up here. It says, what field would you like to see? The fields that I can put on this layout either belong to the base field for the table occurrence or something I'm relationally connected to. So my list is limited to the things that I have deliberately set up. See that? That's called organization simplicity. If all this was connected, you'd have to sit here and sit here and sit here and hunt and hunt and hunt. This is starting point light. This is a fairly simple solution. Okay. But because I'm working on just this one table occurrence group, and I add a new one, and it's going to be TO1Q. I don't think there's a Q over here. TO1 LMNO. There's no P or Q. It'd be right there. I could find it fast. A, I can find it. B, it's simple. C, there is a performance problem here, a performance possible problem. When I come to this layout, butterflies and bugs, think about this. The layout, remember over here, this layout is be driven by what? Okay. If I come over here, what's the layout driven by? It's by this. When FileMaker has to display this layout here, right? And most of the time we're talking to a FileMaker server. We're displaying this layout right here. It has to go to the server. I'm copy a pro. Maybe you're on your phone on Go, WebDirect or something. It's going to go to the server and says, hey, I got to display L200. And it's good. And then FileMaker goes up here at the top. It says, oh, it's connected to this table occurrence right here. Okay. So FileMaker server says, hey, this user wants to display this. I've got to send this and everything that's connected to it down the network to it. Well, if I send everything on the screen, it's only 4 or 5 TOs. But if I'm over here and you're going to go to the account and display the layout, it's going to evaluate all the connected items. So you want it to evaluate just these, or do you want to evaluate the whole damn thing? So then you get the stopwatch in a circle. Simplicity, you can find what you want. That's also why I do A, B, C, D, F, G. I don't care. Pick something, whatever numbering. You don't have to use my numbering. Pick something that makes sense to you. But TO1, if I'm on accounts and I'm looking for something, I know it's TO1 and then A, B, C. When I get to Z, then I do A, B, B, C, C, D. I do something like that. Okay.
Yes.
So performance one and simplicity of finding what the hell you're looking for are the two issues. Just so critical.
I think Brooke was asking something related, but not quite this. So I'm going to.
Well, that was the question you asked me. So
I know I'm going to rephrase it on my end a bit because that was a good answer.
It's a Jeopardy. Would you like to rephrase it in the form of a question?
Yeah. So I think they were asking about the fact that if you have anchor accounts and you have buoy contacts, then you don't need to connect anchor contacts with. Yep.
Yeah. So the question is,
but we do that anyway.
Because things get expansive and get out of hand. If I have a big layout, it gets its own table occurrence group. Okay, there's contacts down here. Okay, for a couple of reasons. Once again, because all the needs down here are not going to be the same ones you need up here. So you're going to cross connect two groups. It's twice as big, half as fast. And if you have 5 records, no one gives. Okay, but if you start putting 100,000 records in here, you start doing sorts and things. Or 1 million records, or how about 100 million records? FileMaker would do it, but you can't break some of these rules. These rules, what is it, the matrix? Some rules are meant to be bent, some rules are meant to be broken. Okay, you can bend the rules until the performance goes off a cliff. I am explaining to you why we build it this way. Senior professional developers will come on the show and argue with me that they can come up with a better way of doing this. They cannot come up with a simpler way. And for performance reasons, Hansa from 2-4 Years Software is a Czechoslovakian or whatever, the Czech Republic now, developer, does performance testing and has determined that the anchor buoy is either the fastest or it's tied for the fastest design style you can use. So this is fast. It's simple to understand. If you want to use some other technique like selector connect or something like that, and you can argue with me because you're sufficiently professional enough with 10 years of combat experience, then fine. Then use whatever you want to use. But butterflies and bugs doesn't understand enough that I'm trying to educate her so as she builds, it's simple for her to understand things. She has a rules of the road. Do I put it on the table occurrence? I don't know. Do you go back to the layout? Do you need it on the layout? No. Then don't put it don't connect it. Oh, I need it. Then is it already there? Is it already a connected one? No, add a new one. But don't bring it up from down here because then suddenly, once again, your list of items that you might, if I come down here, the list of possibilities is limited. That's it. These are the related items, such a simple list, and they're even numbered. And there is a method of madness in here. We put the word accounts in here, so it's obvious. And then that is the table that's connected, that table occurrence. Now, the question becomes, well, if I'm on this and I pop a little tiny window real quick, do I have to jump to TO2 or TO3. No, you could pop a little support window, an auxiliary support window that is only attached to like TO1A, right? You could do that. Just be careful that that little pop-up supporting window doesn't need a lot of help, okay? A lot of supporting stuff. So if I go browse mode, and I'm going to hit OK right here, I'm going to click OK. Say I'm in browse mode, and I pop a card. This is not a card style window, but say I pop a card style window. Okay, it's another window. Pop a card style window. How complicated? I come down here, I pop this. That is a pop over window, but what if that's a card style window? Well, how complicated are the needs? What is on it? Is it a bunch of related stuff from other places? This is the whole idea next week of go to unrelated record. It's called tog hopping. We kind of hop from one tog to another. It's a follow-on to this conversation. It's probably too much for butterflies and bugs, but Brooks and some of the other people, Dymock, you probably already are tog hopping. You didn't even know you're doing it. But it's the idea that you click on like something here, and you're like, if I click here, generically, I'm going to go to a layout for contacts, and I've jumped to a different table occurrence group. But what if I'm on here and I want to see contacts and I see Richard Alvarez and I want to jump to him and I press this button right here, we've tog hopped. That's a tog hop, I'm pretty sure. So we've jumped to this layout, which is attached to contacts because it's a big layout. It's got a lot of requirements. It should have its own table occurrence group. In fact, Brooks, for those of you a little bit more advanced, say you have a really complex system, and you can't fit all the things about accounts or contacts. You have an invoice here, and it's so complicated, right? Then what you could do is have a one layout for part of it and another layout for the other part of it. Those two layouts could have their separate table occurrence groups to separate them, right? Because think about it. If you're over here and you need double the number of occurrences, like 50 of them, maybe you have this group here, right? You have this group here, right? Like this. Can I do that? I have that group there. And maybe you have another accounts layout that is driven by another one like this, and they're separate. If I just delete this and delete the calendar right here and get rid of that, I can delete the calendar so it's not crazy. Yeah, remove, fine, whatever. So there's accounts. Well, why aren't they cross-connected? To keep things simple for you and to improve performance. Because when you're on this layout, it has to think about all these and evaluate them to display it. And if you jump over here, it has to think about all these and evaluate them. If you're jumping back and forth constantly, then it's going to need to do it. But what if you're over here most of the time, then every once in a while you come over to this layout. And of course, these would be different because the needs in here would be different. Well, you don't need these here, and you don't need these on this one. And so you could actually thin them down and remove them and make them speedier. The fewer table occurrence items in a tog, the fewer legs on the anchor buoy on the table occurrence group, the fewer buoys you have there, the faster it goes. The faster the performance is, especially over a server that's on the cloud, millions of records, 50, 100 users. This matters.
We have some more comments, so we're not done yet.
I will answer questions until people tell me to go away.
Butterflies and Bugs said you answered this question, but I'll ask it. I know that you said they figured it out, Butterflies, but I'm going to ask it anyway for the people who don't say anything and haven't figured it out. So each TO based on a particular table will have its own anchor and buoy regardless of how many.
Correct. It should. If you, well, you could do whatever you want. You could connect all these to one. I'm saying okay, if you follow what I'm saying, follow my rules, every major layout, here's accounts right here, right? All the major layouts that belong to accounts, like right here's the detail, here's a list view. These both still belong to that same accounts. And if I had maybe a report or something like that, it would probably be attached to that too. You don't have to have every separate layout. Like if I have 5 layouts for accounts, data entry, list view, and 3 reports, they all could belong to the accounts TO1. But if some of those layouts are really different and you have millions of records, you might want to separate them out. I'm not saying you have to, it's just a consideration. I definitely have done it before. I don't know if we've done it on Big Valley Aviation or not, but we're probably close. a couple things where we want to set for performance to make sure it runs fast for the users. Technically, all the accounts, all the layouts based on accounts. Up there says this. Well, this is invoices. All the invoices once can belong to T12. List view, data entry, report this, report that. So this is a chart that has to do with invoices. It's still attached to T12. Here's another report. This one's attached to something else. I'm not sure why. I'd have to chase that down. Here's another list attached to T12. Here's a detail of a print view. Remember, print's different than the data entry screen, Margaret, a print job. Okay. PDF or paper. It's attached to T12. So probably, in fact, this is really cool. Go to manage, go to layouts. You go to estimates. Here's estimates, for example. Most of all the estimates are attached to the base table, the base tog for that. If you go to accounts, here they are. They mostly all are attached to it. And any outliers you'd see right here. See, there's that one there. It's some sort of history or something. So it's doing something a little different. This one's on line items, right? See how those are? So say we had like not five, but we had like 20 account layouts, and some of them were really used by different groups in the company with different needs. You might want to separate TO1 accounts and then have a totally TO2 or TO5 account, something totally separate. Even though the base table is the same, for performance and benefits and simplicity, you would split them. Next question.
Brooks, I don't know if you are a historical FileMaker developer or new to FileMaker, you just inherited something, but they said something interesting. I've inherited an old solution. The table is a spider web mess, like you just described. I scroll forever. I've been breaking out and making multiple occurrences for my sanity. The alphanumeric on front will make it easier for sure. Thank you. I think your numbering system is what he was talking about. So, because I guarantee it's a spider web and it's not numbered for anything.
Yeah, if we go to the there it is. So this is, we actually kind of covered this before, but we covered it again because it's such a good topic. I'm going to pop this open. So this is what Brooks is describing here. It's a pile of doo-doo. Okay. So if I scroll down here, this is what Brooks is talking about. There's another graphic over here. This is what you don't want, because this is the main layout right here. And for it to display, FileMaker has to think about all these. Even it's going Super Warp 9, fast computer, latest Mac from Apple or Windows, whatever, an i9 processor with all the trimmings on it. It still has to process all this. You can't buy enough hardware in the world of FileMaker to compensate for a bad design. Whenever you buy new hardware, you can fix things 20 or 30%, maybe, if that. But if you have a report that takes 2 minutes to run and it needs to go in 10 seconds, you can't buy enough hardware. There's no nuclear reactor big enough to solve that problem. You need to change the design. So two problems: performance, plus when he or she wants to see a field on here and they say, show me all the related tables, all that comes up. So then this is the Lego person. He's pissed off. This is the FileMaker curriculum. Claris used to maintain this curriculum. We maintain it now for Claris. They don't even know we do this. I try to explain to them. They're like, there used to be a curriculum or a book called the FTS Training in FileMaker 15. We took it over and maintain it now. So unhappy person, and then you're over here, unhappy Lego person. Okay. Come down here, anchor buoy. See, you're there, and you're there. And all you have to see is see these. And so if you have a spider diagram over here, then what you do is you build a new layout and you start a new you're going to grab and you're going to build this little dude right down here. You're going to build this and you're going to put it down here at the bottom on a new layout. And then slowly deprecate this and not use it anymore.
So you wouldn't just delete it out of hand. You would begin slowly rebuilding it. Like,
you
run into it as you need it, I guess.
Well, the problem is you don't know what to delete over here. It's such a mess.
So
no, I mean, seriously, I'm not a surgeon, but if I cut open Brooks, you have I need a bypass on your heart, and we're going to fix your heart, and you give it to me. I'm an engineer. I'm a pilot. I'm talented. I got hand-eye coordination. Brooks, you're going to die because I'm going to get in there and I'm going to start ripping parts out that I don't think you need. I'm going to stitch it back together and you're toast. Okay. No one, not even God, can fix this relationship diagram. And I'm being kind of flip. God would tell you to just build a new table occurrence group and don't bother him. He's busy. Okay. So I'm being flip, but you get the idea.
So yeah, you basically start doing the table occurrence in the bottom corner. You don't try to unwind that. You just go like, well, accounts needs to be connected
eventually
to
get to a point
contacts.
where all the layouts are, you're using all new layouts. And those layouts are attached to togs. And once you're not using any of the other stuff anymore, you still got to be careful because a lot of times you'll have a calculation that you use a calculation field. When you define a calculation field, Margaret, let me just go over here. This is the one last thing you got to be aware of. I'm over in a field and I'm on a calculation. When you tell a calculation to evaluate, it evaluates it based upon its kind of current context. Evaluate this, calculate. We don't almost ever talk about this because we use anchor-buoy and it's simple. We're going to evaluate this from the context of here. But if you're telling it to evaluate something here, and it's one of these up here, wherever that we deleted, then it's broke. The calculation is broke. You'll have to manually switch it and fix it.
And actually, now that I think about it, if you delete the table occurrence in the relationship, doesn't that get rid of the layout?
No, well, we get rid of layouts you're not using because your layouts are now attached down here. Your layouts, right?
Yes.
So.
But I'm saying in general, if I have a layout attached to like a floating gray thing in the void, and I delete the floating gray on the relationship side.
The layout you'll have a layout and it says unrelated. It'll say a bunch of like unrelated data.
Oh, I've seen that before.
You've seen that before. Yeah.
I think we are good.
This is a good conversation. We're going to save this, and
I think this is probably one of the best versions of this you've done.
I've done. Yeah, I tried really hard to bring it
Butterflies
down.
and Bugs says doing the layout first and then adding the relationships was huge. It's not the way it was taught before, and this makes so much more sense. Anchor-buoy makes order out of chaos. So.
Yep, and then you do the scripting the way we talked about it, and now your chances of being successful in the world and the world of FileMaker have gone up by about 10,000%. And I'm just here to help. I love you folks to be successful. I want you to be successful. Nothing like going home at the end of the day and knowing that you built the solution and people are using it, and they're using it successfully. And they might find little things. They always want it to be better, but you've made the world a better place. I mean that seriously. And if you can collect a check at the end of the day and make the world a better place, that's a twofer.
Cool. That being said, have a good one, everybody. Goodbye.